Please. And I think ladies first, if you don't mind. What I would like to say is that I've been in stockbroking and investment banking for many years, and one of the traders' rules is that nothing moves in a straight line, and there are ups and downs. But if something is to rise or something is to fall, it will happen sooner or later. So I would like our participants to spend maybe 5 minutes how they see Ukraine in future, because we need to know where we're going, and we need to understand the forces which influence Ukrainian situation. There could be hiccups and stumbles on the way, but I would like to hear your views on where Ukraine is heading, and perhaps a few words about obstacles on this way. So I would like, as I said, I would like to start from Kateryna. But she kindly would like to pass on the word, or yeah? Okay. All right, let's start from the other end. Let's start from Oleksiy. As I said, I think he's looking after our most important sector. Ukrainian economy had 2 legs to stand on, metals and mining and agriculture. Unfortunately, due to various circumstances, one leg was shot off. And now we are all looking at the one leg standing. We may get another leg from IT services, whatever, but at the moment, agriculture is the most important. So I would like to Oleksiy to say a few words.
Sergey, thank you very much for introduction. First of all, thanks everybody for coming to Ukraine and believing in Ukraine, because I see so many people which I know from so-called previous life when I was in the business, and I see so many investors. For me, it's also a big pleasure to see you here. For sure, it's the right time to come. On behalf of my ministry, on behalf of government, I'd like to say that we have one of the most interesting times in our history, with absolutely new government, with absolutely new parliament, with really fruitful cooperation. So many people saying that it's not so probably the best. You never can find the best situation, but you see one of the best in the last 23 years circumstance and situation when we have full support and cooperation from the different governmental bodies, from executive power, from legislative power, and it's really fruitful production cooperation. And if you see only in the last 5 months how many things has been done, I can give you some information about deregulation. So it's really hundreds of different acts has been done. Only in Ministry of Agri, 50 most important changes in the regulation has passed. 14 licenses has been cancelled. 6 certificates has been cancelled. And especially for trading business and for certification, you already can see the results, immediate results for the business. You see also, we do also big steps about land reforms. We started from minimum 7 years lease. It's also very important for the investors to understand that you invest in the land not for 1, 2, 3 years. At minimum 7 years are in place, and we also now easy the regulation of registration and re-registration of land itself, land agreements. And we also started very complicated process of finalizing Katastrium, its electronic database, also to move to further steps. Because so many rumors saying, okay, you should open the land sales and it should do land reform, but you have to prepare for this, guys. And we do a lot of things to prepare for this, for the future. But currently we say that we have to also match the expectations of our local society and also our foreign investors. And also about foreign markets, I can also give information. Agribusiness is one of the most important, most of the interesting, because Ukraine is really feeding the world. We're not anymore the bread basket, we're the food basket. We're really feeding the world. We're in the top 5 countries of the, let's say, exporters. Number 1 for sunflower seeds and oil, and number 3 for the grain and wheat, and number 7 for poultry. And we have huge potential to actually double our exports by 2020, together with your investments. And if you also compare with Poland, for example, Ukrainian agribusiness is undercapitalized. Minimum 3 times undercapitalized, with a huge potential for leasing of machinery, for proposing the loans for the dryer silos, big perspectives for the irrigation system in the south, so we can easily double our yields there. with the facilities for infrastructure, with the port facilities, with the railways, with also the facilities to open Dnieper River together with Ministry of Infrastructure. We plan also to, from this year, to increase number from 3% total transportation on the Dnieper at minimum to the France level, where they have 25%. And together with that, we see really big potential. We currently also have big projects with the European Union on integrating to the European market, with opening for the new products. Last year, we had also deals with the chicken, and okay, the quotas are not so high, but we opened the market and we are able to satisfy European quotas only 1 month. It's for many products, like for honey, for chicken, for many others. This year we plan to open for dairy products, for milk products, for veal meat. Huge potential with Asian markets. You used to say that Russian market and custom unions was so important. Guys, it's less than 15% total our export of agribusiness. And if you compare with European Union has up to 5 billion exports of agri products. And with the increase to 5% and 6.6 billion US dollars to Asian market, China, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, we became very important in terms of global food safety and security. And it's not only because of agribusiness and so many other related businesses as well. And we as a government trying to convey the message that, guys, we are here to fight for the business. Our role, not to let business, let's say, to interfere to the business as less as possible, to stop the government interference and let's say, and to help you with minimizing number of taxes from 22 to 9. Also easing the social expenses and pension fund from 43% then up to 15%. And together with the parliament, thanks to the parliament, I think we have done so many steps, also to show first steps that we are trying to invite investors here. That's why my perspective and my feeling that now one of the best time to invest to Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleksiy. I would like to give the word to Andrey, and first of all, I would like to thank him for coming here, because we know that this week is a session week in the Parliament, so thank you very much for finding time to address the investors and visitors. Thank you.
Вот, поэтому спасибо. Yes, let me speak and also echo some of the words that Oleksiy said. Ukraine has a new parliament, a new European coalition that has tasked itself with reforming the country and implementing, as part of implementing the coalition agreement in parliament. What sits high on the agenda of this coalition is reforming Ukraine towards a new future, and as head of the parliamentary budgeting committee, admittedly 2015 has been a challenging year in terms of those major challenges in defending the country, and now we're setting our budgetary policy for 2015 and beyond. And if you look at the pipeline of bills as initiated by the presidency and other agents of legislative initiatives, charting the way forward for the country to help Ukraine transition back into growth, and so that 2016 could become the first year of a resuming growth in the economy. And this coalition agreement and the parliamentary majority, as we pass those various bills into law, helping implement the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, helping improve Ukraine's business climate. We've seen a lot of consensus in Parliament in terms of most bills passing seamlessly through Parliament, winning a big majority every time. Also, there's this continued dialogue and feedback solicited and collected from businesses to help many of the reform efforts, in particular in the area of government budget, to achieve genuine deregulation and decentralization. What is really important is to speed up the feedback loops in order to adjust our course based on this useful feedback that we collect from various stakeholders, and the fact that there has been a lot of devolution already done, with many financing powers delegated to the provincial municipal level, and this is all helping improve the local investment climate, and this has empowered local authorities in terms of putting more authority in their hands in terms of deciding on how to spend the rate collections, the tax collections that they collect locally, and certainly this process also has it's a bumpy road, but basically we need to adjust our course as we go ahead with this decentralization effort, and we will certainly further fine-tune this new concept and this new budgeting framework. Then we should continue working to chunk up the communities, basically to enlarge those communities, to make larger communities, and it makes perfect sense to create pan communities, and this will certainly empower local councils in a much better way, and will also supply those local councils with greater resources. And as Oleksiy quite correctly pointed out, both within the executive and within the legislative branch of government, there's a lot of coherence and consensus in terms of prioritizing the various bills, and we've seen bills pass through Parliament exceptionally fast, and the time spent in committee and then in plenary session, and it has shortened quite significantly, and then again those decisions have become immediately available to the public for comment, and feedback is always invited from the opposition. Anything that helps improve this country's and this economy's investment climate. And in the light of, amid this high political attention to this country, we could leverage that, but we could capitalize on this to help Ukraine resume growth and prosper, and anyone who believes in this country and who will end up investing in the likes of Ukrainian farming, the company owned by Mr. Oleg Bakhmatyuk. And what is really at stake, what really matters, is that Ukraine is not in political crisis mode, in that there's consensus between the executive and parliament. There's this understanding that everyone must get behind and make their contribution to help Ukraine attract investments, to help the industry emerge as a leading one, as a true locomotive of the economy. I'll have to excuse myself. I have to rush to the Parliament building, so I would like to end up by extending my appreciation to the organizers of this forum for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Andrey. Thank you for stopping by.
I want to give the floor to Oleg Bakhmatyuk, the head of the largest Ukrainian agri company, and to hear from him how he sees Ukraine in the future and what might be a problem to achieving this future from business point of view.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out. I just didn't expect this would come to anything. There's this good, joke about white and grey stripes. It was last year was a white one. This one is a little more grey. So it's because we've been interacting with investors, and we've got both debt and equity investors, and we have quite a good understanding of. We think that we love investors dearly, and we think we also are appreciated by investors. And representing here today Ukraine's largest farming company, but we are a mere 1.5% of Ukraine's total stock of farmland. But it serves as a showcase, demonstrating Ukraine's potential as it reflects, reflecting back on Ukraine, on the current situation, I would like to just briefly present our vision and just echo some of the previous contributions from my perspective as a business person and in terms of sharing a vision for what is to come. So admittedly, we haven't seen such a difficult year in this liquidity crunch, and this applies to all. We almost completely lost Avantgarde, a company that we had put 10 years into building, and it had grown to become the world's second largest egg producer, and overnight we lost 20% of our territory, 37% of our consumption market, and this devaluation and inflation killed our domestic cash flows. Now we will have to bring it back to life over the next 3 to 5 years to recover our previous numbers. But then again, now we will. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Now our new strategy is to achieve a much larger contribution from exports of 50 to 60%, as the parliamentary representative said that it's something that's coming. And in our crop farming business, even it's been tough, but it's we also made some losses in some high margin business lines, but at the same time, what it really shows that it's proved quite resilient, and this is something. Some of the core segments, they continue generating the cash flows that and as Mr. Pavlenko said, that Ukraine is becoming an important hub for coarse grains, and then Ukraine's path is to develop downstream into animal proteins, poultry, beef, eggs, chicken meat, and this is the path, and this is investors, if they decide to join at this initial stage, and then will partake of this growth in value-added activities. I spoke about a year ago at a similar conference. At that time, we said that things would turn around within the next 12 months. Things would have resolved themselves. That was the expectation. But now we have been growing more and more accustomed to living in a permanent war atmosphere, as Israel has done for decades. And it's like it's economically what we are seeing now. It's these difficulties have really helped us see those industries that are viable and have prospects to stay afloat. And this, this year, this is important. This upheaval, this change with metals and agriculture swapping over, and IT is a new horizon. But it's something that's coming sometime down the road. I would like to praise the ministry for their excellent deregulation effort, but deregulation in and of itself is not enough. The agriculture ministry is certainly underfunded, and investments need to be invited. Unless Ukraine comes up with a big roadmap, a big Marshall Plan, what's in the name, with allowing healthy money issuance while controlling the energy efficiency and investments in infrastructure. We should be talking about large infrastructure projects that provide a cushion of safety to invite investors to come in. No one will convince me that anyone will be looking at Ukraine seriously over the next year or 18 months. Everyone has taken a wait and see and sit and wait, taking a waiting position. Now but by this time, the country will have presented projects by the time investors are ready to come in, and the government should serve in a leading role, as we were discussing our port projects, and so we can grow to a volume of 60-70 million tons of grain turnover. So with Ukraine's contribution of up to 50% in civil works, in construction materials, something that would propel the economy forward, and then come up with terms and conditions understandable for the investor to generate cash flows. So the same activity should also, so this internal reliance on the national currency, we shouldn't really get fixated on the US dollar, because this is a local currency economy. Now, this is indeed quite a liquidity squeeze situation aggravated by the political and economic crisis. Indeed, the body of Ukraine is bleeding. We need to heal the wound first, but then we need to see the body convalesce. And I think that we are quite in tune with the Agriculture Ministry, and we seem to be a little too scared of allowing money issuance. But if we're talking about investing, tying up this new money in infrastructure projects, we must step forward and put our best foot forward and demonstrate to the investors, yes, we're ready to spend, we're ready to invest. And the same applies to the east of Ukraine. We've lost so many jobs, that not just to the conflict, but to the fact that trade with Russia has waned. And unless there's an enabling environment put in place in rail car construction, producing rail cars is like printing hryvnias. I still find it difficult to understand why Ukrainian Railways keep saying we don't want to renew our rolling stock. This is what they must do. Ukraine must. It's like printing money. Ukrainian Railways must become very modern. Why are they in pursuit of this strategy? It's just my vision of some of the processes. It's just I've been trying to talk to you a bit about the company without complaining. You know what? Because nobody likes beggars. Nobody likes people begging to get something. It's okay. We're not complaining, but we have been servicing our debt diligently. Have been done $80 million worth of debt payments, and we are now completing our sowing campaign. And you know what? What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. This sowing campaign has revealed many of the hidden assets and properties. Has really put my team to the test, and it's really important as a platform, as a springboard to leap forward into new investment projects. Back to the political situation, and now there's a new team in the driver's seat, very ambitious, committed, big dreamers. We've been doing our best to help the new team, and we hope that no political or economic complications. Now, we feel that it's easier for us to communicate with the government, but then again, it's apart from this particular point. But then again, we need to invite investments. Okay, not only the IMF, but this is political money. But IMF money always serves as a beacon. As something that will invite private investors. So we should achieve $1 of IMF money versus $2 of private investment money. But we can't subsist on IMF money only. But it's like if you need to have a leg amputated, okay, you can cut the leg off and still survive, but not cutting all the way up to the neck. Then the body will not survive. So Ukraine needs to come up with a public plan and commit itself to investing, say, 100 million hryvnias to ports and to municipal infrastructure. And dear investors, please come in. Ukraine will invest 70%, and we are inviting 30 to 40% from investors, private investors. So we are inviting investors to invest in projects generating cash in agriculture, in energy efficiency, alleviating our dependency on imports, something that will benefit business. We don't need to be helped, but it's difficult to work in a situation in which we can't borrow. We've always had limits of up to $200 million on a revolving basis. Now it's even this is not available this year. So this is a very severe liquidity squeeze. It's something that not only my company but most other companies have to face. But what we've seen, we have survived under these exceptionally challenging circumstances for the past 12 months. So we keep lamenting, but we keep pushing forward. But then again, it's like there is this metal fatigue anyway. We shouldn't push it too hard. Now this new government that's been getting up to speed to sell Ukraine internationally, and then again, why reinvent the wheel? Many countries have gone through similar patches, and the US and the post-war Europe, China, when things were done to stimulate domestic demand. So we must act to expand demand rather than see it contract. So economically, it's not austerity only. We must do something to promote growth, to help Ukraine resume growth. And I know that many people, like-minded people in this room, that are committed to changing things for the better. Okay, deregulation is fine. Okay, we can recognize this as a big achievement, but deregulation is a good starting point. But then what must follow is things incentivizing economic growth. So I've been sort of shuttling back and forth and jumping over from one subject to the next. But what I've been trying to convey to you is my understanding and vision for the company, and just my personal. I don't claim to be any authority on the subject, but it's just, then again, this is the largest farming company, but it's only 1.5% of Ukraine's farmland potential. It's not claiming that we are the best, but at least we show as a demonstration for Ukraine's potential. And it's one good sign is that we've got over 200 attendees, and this is a good hallmark of interest. And we very much look forward to seeing this interest being kept up. And I think that many companies, private companies, may not be very convenient for investors from a risk standpoint. What we will have done over the next 6 months, we will have come up with instruments to impart safety to investors, to go back to normal. And then again, we won't need much help. We will not need to be helped. We just don't want things to stand in the way. Thank you for coming. We're ready to...
Thank you very much, Oleg, for your presentation and answers. I would like to ask Morgan Williamson. He's been watching Ukraine. He's been in Ukraine for many years. And in the context of US-Ukrainian relations, and perhaps can or may Ukraine hope for sort of Marshall Plan for Ukraine? Please give your view on the situation and the future of Ukrainian-US relations.
Thank you very much. The U.S.-Ukraine Business Council appreciates the opportunity to be here today. My first trip to Ukraine was in 1992 to Sumy, Ukraine. Flew down from Moscow to look at agriculture, look at no-till farming. And of course, we have two of the major people here on the podium who should be in the future the number 2 salesman for Ukraine to export food and to feed the world, which is a great possibility for Ukraine, and much needs to be done. But I'd like to follow up. The U.S.-Ukraine Business Council does represent around 200 businesses, not just the United States, international businesses and Ukrainian businesses. Our goal has always been to promote Ukraine as a place to do business, and also to make it an easier place to do business, and of course to enhance United States-Ukrainian business relationships. I'd like to follow up on what Oleg said. For Ukraine to expand, for it to grow, we have to have the growth and stabilization of the public sector, but also the private. Right now, the world community has stepped up and made not just made financial decisions, but made political decisions to pump $20 billion or more into the public sector of Ukraine to bring about stabilization. And the decisions made by the United States, Europe, and the IMF were not just financial decisions. They were decisions to save Ukraine and support Ukraine, massive political decisions. So the macro stability is getting much better. And for businesses to expand here, which is the thing that could happen the fastest, to expand present business, to bring in new business, they have to face the macroeconomic stability. It's getting better. They want the national debt to be restructured and a few things, but the macro risk is getting much better. The reform and corruption risk, not as good as the business would like for it to be, not moving as fast as business would like, or the United States and Europe, but there are reforms being put in place, and corruption has gone down some, and there's going to be programs to significantly reduce corruption some more. So the macro risk is getting better. Reform and corruption risk is getting better. So those who would like to expand or invest here, but then they have to face the fact of what Oleg said is the credit crunch. Credit has basically dried up for Ukraine. 90-day loans, 180, 360, mid-term, long-term loans, they're just not there. And so you have the risk that your present lenders will not back you. They won't turn over the loans. They won't provide you any new credit. So that becomes on top of your normal commercial risk, a financial risk. But then when you add on top of that the Putin risk, it makes it a very difficult situation. Ukraine is not going to go anywhere with just public sector reform and public sector financial stability. The other half of the coin is private sector growth, and that's our biggest concern, because that's the one that the government of Ukraine has least been involved in or able to move forward in, and that's one where the West seems to be saying, we're going to wait on Ukraine. Ukraine's got to move first before we do anything to support the private sector. And if you let the private sector just revolve itself over the next few years, it's going to be 4 or 5 years before really private credit comes in, and that's going to be too long. So let's talk about...
Ukrainian economy can't wait 4 or 5 years for the money to come in. It's just too long.
That's right. But we also have to analyze Putin risk, because when you build it in, Putin risk is not just boots on the ground, not just taking Crimea and what he's done in eastern Ukraine. He's been after Ukraine for many years. He's had a massive program to destabilize the Ukrainian military. He has a massive program to destabilize the Ukrainian government. He's had a massive program to destabilize Ukrainian business. And he's had a massive program to destabilize Ukrainian society, and a massive propaganda program to make Ukraine look bad and to try to split Europe to not being supportive of Ukraine and to reduce sanctions. So the Putin risk is massive. He's coming at Ukraine with all guns loaded, and he's coming against Europe and the United States, and Ukraine just happens to be where he's fighting the battle. So Putin, for the business community, is the #1 risk in the world. He's the #1 risk for Ukraine. He's the #1 risk for Europe and for the United States. And to reduce Putin risk for the business community, you're going to have to get Europe and the United States to take Putin more seriously about what his massive campaign is and how he's coming to destabilize Ukraine on all fronts with massive programs. And this didn't just start a year or two ago. He's been doing this for a long time. So then what's going to happen? Ukraine is only going to stabilize itself macro-wise because the international community stepped up. The international community has not stepped up to support the private sector. The international financial institutions, yeah, they're open for business, but they're not very aggressive, taking care of present customers. Most of the private international institutions are on hold for Ukraine, and there's no massive program. So for us, the government of Ukraine is going to have to take this on. They're going to have to get private investors together with international financial institutions, and the U.S. government and the European government are going to have to come up with some new structures fast to put some political risk insurance in here and some commercial risk insurance to jumpstart Ukraine. Mm-hmm. We need to get this going fast. We don't have much time, and it's not going to just happen just as a normal process. It needs to be jump-started, and it's got to be the government of Europe and Ukraine putting up more money in partnership with the private sector. And so that's our biggest concern. We don't see anything happening. We talk in the United States and they say, well, let's wait for Ukraine to see if they're going to reform and reduce corruption, and maybe we'll help them. Europe says, well, we're waiting too to see what they do. And in the meantime, business is going downhill here, and we're not financing any new business or expansion. So again, that's our biggest concern. The international community, the political community, the financial community, the government of Ukraine's got to get together quick and put some massive programs in place for Ukraine outside their normal programs to meet the crisis here. That's not happening. I don't see anybody doing it. Everybody's just kind of yawning and says, let's wait. We don't have time to wait.
Thank you. Catherine, could you please follow up on that and give us, we are shifting gradually from economy to politics, and give your view on the situation.
Thank you very much. I represent the Kennan Institute in Ukraine, which some of you may know as a US-based, Washington-based think tank, part of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. And as an independent think tank, we've been present on the ground in Ukraine since 1999. Over the last few weeks, Ukraine has attracted a big number of audiences coming from the West. There have been up to 15 conferences that I personally attended on Ukraine, and this is a great indication that this country attracts a lot of attention from not only investors, but diplomats, governments, journalists, civil society activists. Ukraine is a fashionable country, and it will stay so. One of the conferences that particularly caught my attention was titled Ukraine Breaking from Soviet Legacy with a question mark. The very fact that there was this question mark in the name and the title of the conference tells that there is some uncertainty whether Ukraine will stay on the path of reform, whether it will not roll back to the black times of the Yanukovych regime. However, the speech that attracted the biggest applause was given by the Swedish ambassador in Ukraine, who said the title of this conference is wrong. The title should be Ukraine, No Post-Soviet Legacy with a big exclamation mark. And in fact, this is very true. Ukraine is breaking with its Soviet legacy, and this should be a biggest sign for foreign investors who come to this country, because the culture and the spirit of this nation is changing. Over the last few weeks, the US-Ukraine Business Council, and here we have to thank Morgan Williams greatly for organizing a big number of seminars and roundtables, not only with Ukrainian government officials, but also with the US ambassador in Ukraine, who has provided us with a very sober analysis of how far Ukraine has come over the last year with the pace of reforms. He had particularly praised this government for holding two democratic elections and ensuring that although the new parliament is not perfect, there is a big critical mass of independent politicians who are not linked to any oligarchs and who are really able to demonstrate the new culture of politics in Ukraine. We are also encouraged by what is being done in the energy sector, and that the government reduced dependency on the Russian gas from 100% to 40%. And there are market incentives to use the gas effectively. So from the perspective of investments, we would strongly encourage you to look at Ukraine's energy sector as one of the biggest, the one that holds the biggest potential, especially if you consider developing alternative energy resources. We are also encouraged by judicial reform and President Poroshenko's personal commitment to ensuring that the Anti-Corruption Commission that has been established recently will have a real meaning, will have real powers, and that it will not just be cynicism and empty talk. Nevertheless, having said that, we should not forget that the government is not doing enough, that the speed of reforms and the speed of anti-corruption efforts is not being as effective and not as fast as we would hope. At the beginning of this conference, it has been said that the world knows a lot of examples of how economic crises had been resolved successfully. And as a historian, I can only draw parallels with the Great Depression period of 1929-1933, when America not only successfully overcame its financial crisis, but became one of the leading economies in the world. The financial indicators at that period were very close to where Ukraine is right now, with 24% drop in personal income, 25% decrease in gross domestic product, 100% plunge in corporate profits, and 37% unemployment. However, it managed to overcome this crisis not thanks to foreign investments, but thanks to a great effort of rich people in the US, of the then oligarchs, who backed the efforts of the government in support of new social policies, in support of strong reforms in the field of education and in the field of culture. That is why today, when we think about the Great Depression periods, we not only remember the long lines in New York at soup kitchens, but we also remember that the biggest cultural institutions, the Metropolitan Museum of Fine Arts, the Carnegie Hall, the Lincoln Center in New York, all of them had been established by American rich to make America attractive and to have museum and culture and art institutions that would make it equal to the masterpieces in Europe and would attract investments from Europe. The countries become attractive for foreign investment, not only because they have good macroeconomic situation and stable indicators. The whole environment, the whole ambiance, the whole cultural image of the country should attract these investments. And that is why I would only encourage Ukrainian rich, and it's very good that Mr. Bakhmatyuk is present today, but not only him, that you should focus not only on developing poultry, eggs, agriculture, and energy sector. You should unite your efforts and start nationwide, big national projects which would reform this country in the field of education, in the field of culture, and in the field of healthcare. This is a shame that this country doesn't have a world-class museums. It is a shame that we don't have good cultural art galleries. It is a shame that with all the talent in this country, we don't have strong theaters and other strong universities which would rank to European and American schools. I believe in Ukraine. I'm a strong civil society activist myself, and I can only encourage all of you to keep investing and keeping your trust in this country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to Ukraine. Your very presence in Kiev today is a big indication that Ukraine will succeed, and that together, by uniting our efforts, we will bring this day of prosperous, democratic, and European Ukraine closer.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Just a little remark on your last point. I think we see changes in the last points. For example, we have Kyiv-Mogila Academy, which is arguably not to the level of the European universities, but it's striving to be so, and there is a good progress. And me as a manager, I look at the resume, and if I see that the person graduated from Kyiv-Mogila, it's probably, I pick them out from the pile and invite them for an interview. And the same with galleries. I don't want to make a political pitch to someone, but there are also private galleries which are developing. And actually tomorrow, together with our partners, we're going to do an auction, and you can see some of the works presented here. So there is massive talent, and yes, we are not there yet, but there is a dynamic which hopefully will get us there in a few years.
You're absolutely right, and in fact I'm very pleased that at the right end of this panel and at the left end of this panel we have two graduates of the Kyiv-Mogila Academy, and actually me and Oleksiy, we've been sharing the same class in 1996. Yes, you're right. There are galleries, there are private galleries, but that is nothing to be compared with the US examples of Andrew Mellon, for example, who donated his entire art collection worth, at that time in 96, $40 million, plus giving another $10 million to construct the National Art Museum at the Washington Mall. It's okay to have a small private gallery, at Bessarabka Market, but this is nothing when you realize that the same businessman has donated almost $9 million to the Clinton Foundation and then to the Blair Foundation, instead of investing this money in support of Ukraine's government initiatives towards social care, health care, education, and culture. So my appeal is, not to keep doing this individual charity, good and very positive, projects, but our rich people, they really should sit at a joint round table, and say, look guys, we've earned enough, and now it's time to start our own giving pledge. We have to support Ukraine, because if we demonstrate to the entire world, that we care about Ukraine, this would be the biggest indication to foreign investors that they should come as well. Because when Ukrainian oligarchs have no trust in their own country, who from overseas will trust in Ukraine if we don't?
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Catherine. We have less than 10 minutes for questions, and I would like maybe to dream or to forecast a little bit. And first question, I'm using my right as a moderator, I would like to ask Oleksiy. Especially, I would like to address him to his past as a businessman, as a manager of agricultural company, and say, if you were to go back and having the probably wide view on the sector in his ministerial position, where would you put your money and in Ukraine, and what interesting fields you see for investment in Ukraine? Please.
Thank you. You wouldn't be surprised I would invest in agribusiness. Why agribusiness? Because we see huge potential. We just analyzed up to $8 billion only for coming 2 years, big potentials. It's list of machinery. I can give you example about machinery. 4,000 tractors and 3,500 combines, it's so-called postponed demand. You do it, you're leasing a machinery, and here's a big demand. The same issue would be with the seeding business. It's a big so-called blue ocean strategy, let's say, blue market, so it's big niche market, highly profitable. Ukraine can be one of the most powerful center of producing seeds worldwide. The same would be with honey, the same would be with horticulture, the same would be with the grain production, with the poultry, with the eggs, with so many fields. And this is added value, extra marginal, new investment, new taxes, the same issues with new working places. And Katya told that it's time for social responsibility. I'm sure that in a rich country with the rich, not poor oligarchs, not the surviving oligarchs, with the rich people, it would be big and new era of social responsibility, because I don't understand currently. It's not probably the right time to think about new galleries, but I'm sure probably it's the right time also to talk about this, because we have seen in the last 2 years the way how people came to the Maidan and what was the social and political responsibility. I'm sure that in this country, with such a wonderful climate, with one of the best black soil worldwide, 30% of black soil land is here, with nice people, we only have the future of success. Sorry for saying that, but I'm sure in that. And together with that, we will be also focusing the social responsibility, also focusing would be many investments, not only in the business, but also on the social sphere. And have seen many villages when with the rich farmers, it was the schools, it was also the very nice hospitals. Both of them are connected. That's why I'm sure that one of the biggest potential sector is agribusiness. At this moment, 37% of export is agribusiness. More than 20% of GDP is agribusiness. And we have huge potential. If you see the map worldwide and you see the countries of potential, I'm sure that only Ukraine has the potential to grow its production more than 2 times. We are feeding 150 million people worldwide. We can feed easily 400 million people. It's without GMO, no GMO. Only with healthy, organic products. And this is a wonderful country with a huge potential of investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleksiy. Questions from the audience, please. I don't see any questions right now, so I will use... would you like to add,
I'd like
Margaret?
to follow up on what the minister said. We see the best investments in Ukraine right now in the second half of the food system. Ukraine, fortunately from the ministry, now says it's the Ministry of Agrarian Affairs and Food. And Ukraine doesn't want to anymore be a bread basket or a wheat basket. You want to be a market basket or a food basket, which is what the minister is promoting. You want to add value. The way you add value is in the second half of the food chain. Once a food product is processed, packaged, canned, jarred, goes to the supermarket here or the supermarket someplace else. A box of cornflakes 85 to 90% of the value is in the second half of the food system, not the first half. Lots of folks doing the first half pretty well. We need more people in the second half of the food system, and Ukraine needs to be a #1 exporter of advanced food products. We need to find out more about what people want to buy. We want to help the food companies here do more to export so Ukraine can become a leading exporter of food, help itself, and feed the world. And we have to do that, just one more comment, we have to build Ukraine with the public-private sector here, the public-private sector of Europe and the United States, and we have to do it knowing that Mr. Putin's not going to reduce his risk. Even if he never moves another boot on the ground, he still has this massive program against Ukraine. It's not just a military, it's a massive program to undercut Ukraine. And it's going to take Europe, United States, and Ukraine working together to build a new Ukraine. And we've got to be committed to the battle, which is against the past here and against Mr. Putin. And we can do it with food as one of our best assets. We need more money in the second half of the food system here. Probably more than just unimaginable how much you could use here to improve Ukraine's capacity to market food around here and around the world.
Thank you, Morgan. Any questions from the audience at this point? Oh, I have one.
Yes, a very simple question.
Sorry, could you introduce yourself, please?
Markian Belinsky, US-Ukraine Foundation. Like Morgan, I've been here for well over 24 years, living and working in Kiev. A very simple question to the panel. I'd like to hear your views on the issue which is being raised again, the sale, the privatization of agricultural land. Is it timely? Will it benefit the Ukrainian people? Will it benefit just the multinational corporations? If you could, please.
It's a very, very complex question, and I think Minister has already mentioned in his speech his view on that. I was wondering if Oleg can, as the largest Ukrainian company, would like to comment on that, please.
Quite frankly, well, a year ago I would have said something different on land privatization, but what I do believe in is that there must be a market. A market must emerge, and it is my viewpoint that for Ukraine to mitigate its political and economic risk, Ukraine should implement the Polish model to invite foreign companies with some grace period and to let land assume its fair value for land to start generating a brand new level of cash flow. And I agree with the minister and other speakers that Ukraine should certainly stake on corn in the first place and then move downstream to processed corn and to value-added foodstuffs, and this will make Ukraine more attractive. So Ukraine must create a domestic market to convert farmland into a tradable commodity, one that can be collateralized. Now, those owning land are stripped of the full plenitude of ownership, but Ukraine should create a market, $30 to $35 billion, then to create land as an instrument to be used as security against loan facilities and derivatives. But at this time, we shouldn't invite many large players because the price now is very low. It's not reflective of the genuine value of land. If we now invite all investors, then they will trade on this, and this will invite negative reactions from the people. That if big investors come in and grab land, and this could result in social difficulties. So we should really exercise extreme caution here. But we should commit to maybe 10 years as a transition period, by the end of which we will have achieved land prices comparable with those that we find in Europe. Now currently the price can be traded $300 to $500 per hectare, but this is not. We must find the right trade-off between the expectations of the population and the national interest, and Now, then again, we are talking about land owned versus land leased. It is a golden rule. 76% of farmland is leased. Only 20% is owned worldwide. So those leasing land must invest in productivity to be able to absorb increasing lease rates. And the land market for tradable land is a domestic instrument to enable farmers to pledge land as collateral, and this could qualify Ukraine as a country that would invite foreign investors to invest in land in 10 years' time, by which time land will have assumed its fair value.
Thank you very much, Oleg. And unfortunately, we are out of time, and I would like to thank the panelists for their presentations, for their speeches. To sum up, I would like to say that we can clearly see that Ukraine holds massive potential. And as someone said, it could be a potential forever. But we see that there are changes on the social ground, as Catherine mentioned, and on the regulatory ground, as Oleksiy and Andrey mentioned, that this potential is getting, is starting to get realized. And which gives us hope, and which gives an opportunity for investors to make money in Ukraine. As I said, it's not going to be a straight line. We may see perhaps a lower point, but if you look at the further perspective, even 1 year ago, we are confident that it should be better and higher than it is now. Thank you very much.